And to the contrary, say no. And that motion is carried. Item 4 is petitions. None have been received, so we go to public input. And there have been 2 requests. The first is from Bike Auckland. And the Bike Auckland chair, the new chair, Tony Mitchell, is joining us, and he will speak to the paper before us, Auckland Cycling and Micromobility Business Case, which is on page 9 of our agenda. And then after Tony, we will hear from Christian Eek, and Christian is a working group member in the film industry. He'll be speaking to the topic of the screen industry's interest in sites of significance and the working group that surrounds that and the filming on those sites of significance. So right now we're going to go to the new chair of Bike Auckland, relatively new. He's been in the role, I think, a couple of months now, but I'll let him tell us that and his history and then speak to the paper before us. Welcome, Tony. Tony Mitchell, Bike Auckland chair.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Chair, Mayor, Councillors, and also committee members. My name is Tony Mitchell, and I am the new Chair of Bike Auckland. And today I'm going to talk to you about the plan that's in front of you for the cycling and micro-mobility business case. Firstly, it's important to say that Bike Auckland support this case. Auckland has fallen behind the rest of the world with developing cycling within their city, and we also have some important targets as a city that the council wants to achieve. And there's some compelling reasons to go for change. If you look at the 6 that are on the screen in front of you now, it talks about challenges that Auckland is facing, but also other cities, major cities around the world as well. We have population growth, we have urbanisation, we have resources being stretched in cities like Auckland around the world. Auckland is no different. They are also looking to reduce emissions. They have emissions targets that they are trying to achieve. They have communities that are not connected. Communities have been split up without the ability to be able to go and share different modes of transport to be able to travel. In addition to that, there's suppression of exercise leading to health and well-being concerns. There's also stress, there's pollution issues. These cities around the world and Auckland have been designed for cars, have been designed around cars. And unfortunately, that model has run its course. Cities around the world now are seeking alternatives to be able to build cities around people. And there are limited options within Auckland and some of these other cities around the world for people to travel safely, efficiently, and cost-effectively. If I look at my next slide, there is a vision for Auckland. There is a vision for Auckland that this council has and has shared already with their constituents. And yes, this plan in front of you will provide better infrastructure for people on bikes, but it will provide so much more than that. Yes, it will help you achieve your emission reduction targets, which are desperately close now for 2030. You're looking to halve your emission reduction targets. You're also looking to have a mode shift through to cycling of 7% by 2030. This plan will help that. But again, it will do so much more. It will help you design your cities around people, for people. It will help improve the health and well-being of people. There will be less congestion. There will be less pollution. There will be less casualties on your roads. It will also give people more choice of opportunities to travel around Auckland, not just in cars, but also bicycles or walking or scooters, and also public transport will play an important role as well. Importantly, you have a vision to connect communities, and you also have a vision, Vision Zero, which is about nobody being injured, nobody having a serious injury or casualties on your roads. And if you're serious about achieving that, this plan is the pathway to be able to do that. This plan provides safe infrastructure for Aucklanders. The moment for change, councillors and committee members, was yesterday. There is urgent action needed now through investment in infrastructure and also behavioural change programs if you are going to achieve your targets, but more importantly, make Auckland a more livable city. Now, on the left-hand side here, I have the current infrastructure network that you have within Auckland for cycling. And I've been extremely generous with the colour coding here. As you can see, there is red, orange, blue, and green. The red and orange are those that are segregated pathways for cyclists in protected lanes. They are designated as safe cycleways for cyclists. It is very difficult to see on the left-hand graph where there are these orange and red pathways. There are green, which is shared pathways for cyclists, walkers, and also micromobility. And there are also in blue, there's on-road cycle lanes with no protective barrier for the cyclists. The problem we have here is that the network is not connected, the network is not safe. If you compare that to the network on the right-hand side, which is for those in automobiles, you can see it's quite extensive. Council members and committee members, 56% of Aucklanders would ride more if it was safe to do so. And that's from a relatively recent TRA survey. This is not an unproven pathway that you're looking at to go down. This pathway has been put in place by Serval, Paris, and also Greater Manchester, and other cities as well. This program seeks to address pollution, casualties, as well as congestion and suppression of exercise. This pathway works. These cities are all having benefits and all benefiting from mode transfer. And ladies and gentlemen, council members, committee members, my final slide here is what it means for your constituents, what it means for the people. For the new apprentice within Auckland, it will give them another choice to be able to travel to their new job. They may not be able to afford to travel by car. It will allow children to be able to play a lot more freely within their neighbourhood and explore, just like we used to do. It will be better for the everyday driver. It will provide better traffic flow within Auckland. The city physician will be delighted that there will need to be less medical attention for road injuries and people will become fitter. Young families will be able to explore their communities a lot better. Small business owners will see an increase in diversity of people on their streets through cycling, through walking, through public transport. Their businesses will actually improve. And residents of local communities will be able to claim back their streets. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tony Mitchell, Chair of Bike Auckland, and we support the business case in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And I will ask for questions now, starting with Councillor Linda Cooper.
Thank you, Tony, and congratulations on your reasonably new appointment, and just acknowledge the previous chair. You haven't talked about children or young people getting to school, and I see that as a major cause of congestion and risk all around the region. I was walking yesterday, and it's not the first time I've seen it, at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I live 400 metres from a school, primary school with a zone, all walkable, but the number of parents, particularly mums with one child in the car, dropping them off, congesting everywhere, and really scary because my husband's been nearly knocked over a few times on his bicycle going past. How do you propose to address that? I know AT are talking about teaching kids to ride bikes. How are we going to educate parents to not drive their children within that 1,200 metre zone? Because that's what's happening everywhere.
Tony, with you.
Thank you. Look, the plan that Auckland Transport has put before you seeks to address that. There's two things that need to happen, and again, when I look at Greater Manchester, they've been down this path as well. You've got to engage the local community and ask them what it would take for them to get on their bike and ride to school with their kids. And they've done that in Greater Manchester, and they were then able to identify what the local community required. And what they require is safer infrastructure. There needs to be a barrier between them and the cars. Then you also need policy changes and also behavioural change initiatives, which are suggested in the plan as well. Again, you know, I've got 5 children, aged between 9 and 18, and I have taken my kids to school on a bicycle and picked them up, but it is not safe currently. And until it is safe, Aucklanders won't make this transition. When the infrastructure is there, we will be able to, in a team effort, help that change and get those parents to, as you say, stop blocking the other pieces of traffic.
So just a supplementary, so, I mean, maybe if everybody didn't drive their kids to school, it would be safer, but, so do you think the good old TravelWise program needs to be ramped right up again and brought back in schools? Because I felt like we were getting some traction with that.
Absolutely. I think that there's some great opportunities to put in education programs into schools. There are some schools that are running them now and doing very, very well. There needs to be emphasis on that, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Quick one from me, Tony. You know, we've built infrastructure here and people have flocked to it. Quay Street Cycleway is a classic. We need almost passing lanes on the Northwest Cycleway. The demand on that is enormous. But what struck me with some information that came to us yesterday from our own Auckland Council Transport and Strategy team was information confirming that kids going to schools in Christchurch are going to schools by bike at 6 times the rate of Auckland. This astounded me. And Tauranga is 6 times as well. What is your observation from the Bike Auckland perspective of what the difference is? Is it infrastructure? Is it a bit more? So I'm asking that because a big focus of the intent and direction of our PBC is on our young people.
It's a combination of infrastructure and also then behavioural change programs. And, you know, when I look to see, not just within Christchurch, in other areas, it takes political leadership as well. You need to make sure that, you know, you're supporting this and putting this in place. It gets results. We've seen that overseas. We've seen that with the Paris mayor put in place an ambitious program and get re-elected. We've also seen in the UK they appoint cycling and walking commissioners, and that is a key role that sits on boards as well.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor Coombe, your call.
Thanks, Chair. Tēnā koe, Tony. Great to see you presenting today. Thank you for that. I think it's perhaps been a bit lost in some of the headlines around what we're actually doing today, and we're just being asked to endorse a prioritisation for a business case with the funding that is already available in the RLTP. So I just wanted to confirm, are you supporting, Bike Auckland is supporting us in terms of that prioritisation and what AT is proposing for that funding?
So yes, we are. So as you're quite right, there's 306 million that is already baked into an existing plan. There is also some additional recommendations as to how Auckland Council can achieve mode shift to 7% and also achieve emission reductions. And so Auckland Transport has put forward a very comprehensive case on that. Bike Auckland also support that case as well.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Coombe. Thank you, Tony. Councillor Henderson, your call.
Thank you, Chair. Just a really quick one. So Bike Te Aratu, one of the constituent organisations, did a fantastic submission to our annual plan where they pointed out some of the costs of cycle infrastructure in Auckland compared to other cities and how we seem to be paying a hell of a lot more than other places. Does Bike Auckland have a view on the cost of this kind of stuff?
Yes, and we have shared that with Waka Kotahi and also at Auckland Transport. There is too much red tape that is slowing the process down and over-engineering. We need safer infrastructure sooner, and it can be built smarter. So that feedback has been clear, and there is willingness to change in both organisations to remove the red tape. And look, there's one thing that we didn't talk about before, but there's a cost of not actually implementing this program. The Greater Manchester calculated the cost of not actually implementing this type of change program. In New Zealand terms, per year, $7.5 billion if they didn't actually take this forward, due to congestion, due to pollution, due to casualties, due to suppression of exercise. So yes, there's a cost of implementation, but there's a cost of not doing something as well.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And I'll now go to Independent Māori Statutory Board Member Karen Wilson. Kia ora, Karen.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Kia ora, Tony. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Congrats also for your appointment to Bike Auckland. Tony, I'm just wanting to know if, in terms of the consideration you put before us, you have also included some thinking around equity and equality, and you've mentioned other countries, and as it potentially relates to Indigenous. Have you progressed that any in terms of the thinking?
So the case before you is from Auckland Transport, and yes, there is a considerable amount of research and thought that has gone into that. Bike Auckland also see the wider community benefits to be able to support communities throughout the Auckland city and region, and also benefit those that are coming to Auckland. We do see it as an ability to provide people transport options, other transport options that will allow them to get out there and be mobile, that will allow them to get to their jobs, that will allow their families to be able to connect with other communities and other families. So yes, at the heart of this plan in front of you is about people of all ethnicities, and it's about diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wilson, and I will now take the question of Councillor Walker, please.
Yeah, hi, Tony. Congratulations on your appointment. Have you had a chance to go through the business case, and have you got any ideas on priorities?
Yes, I have been through the business case many times, and talked to many people about it as well. Look, the first thing that we need is political support, and we need to build infrastructure. Without the infrastructure, without an infrastructure that allows connection through Auckland, without that, you won't be able to get the people on bikes. So that, for me, is the priority, making sure that you're putting in place safe cycleways and identifying and rolling out that infrastructure rapidly.
Thank you, Tony.
So just a further question: Have you had the business case for a while? And I'm not talking about Future Connect. I'm talking about the business case we're discussing today. So
the business case was meant to be presented at the previous council meeting, and I've had it since then. Before then, I wasn't part of Bike Auckland before December. But there was an existing plan that I had also had access to, which was presented previous years.
Tony, just for clarification, you're referring to the report. You had that?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Councillor Filipino.
Thank you, Chair, and tēnā koe, Tony. Look, my question is around existing infrastructure. For example, we have there Te Aramua Future Streets, and in Māngere in particular, it's not being used as much as we all would have hoped. What do you think Bike Auckland could do to end up? We have Mr. T. We also have some of our ladies that that support Mr. T from Bike Auckland. What do you think you as an organisation can do to increase the participation or the use of those in regards to that particular one, and also the one at the airport? You know what I mean? That's because I'm seeing that it's not being used, and as both myself and Councillor Collins would know, because it's our patch, it's just looks like it's going to waste. So yeah, just the part-time.
No, look, thank you for that question. I think, and Mr. T is doing an excellent job, and it's actually a blueprint for what needs to happen. So we have a local community that has got together and is providing a service and a network of support and access to bicycles within their local community. And what Bike Auckland does is we support those communities, those bike burbs around Auckland, and we need to grow more of those and identify people within those communities that can really take on leadership roles like you've got there. But that won't be enough. First of all, you need safer infrastructure that connects to other places. You also need conversion programs. You need programs that encourage change of behaviour, which is in the plan in front of us. And you also need policy changes. And it's going to be those three things that are going to be able to encourage the usage. Bike Auckland is doing everything that we can on our limited resources to be able to help and encourage and enable communities. But we need the Auckland Council and Auckland Transport to also do that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Filipaina. And final question, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Simpson, your call.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations, Tony, on your new role. Must be very exciting. You've got some wonderful cycling infrastructure in your neck of the woods. But look, my question, I got an unsolicited call this morning from a principal in a school in South Auckland who had read some media, and he said to me, this is so far from reality as to what our community needs, it's not funny. He said the consequences will go well beyond, the negative perverse consequences will go well beyond any staff or staff understanding. So I was quite concerned to talk to that principal. So my question to you is, how wide is your Back Auckland network, specifically in South Auckland and areas that maybe don't have so much of this infrastructure now? I mean, I know that you do quite a lot in Central Auckland, but how far do you go, and how strong are those networks?
So we have people that membership that covers the whole of Auckland. Yes, we have people in Central Auckland, but we have a very strong connection with South Auckland as well. I do wonder whether or not the media that this person's referring to was talking about items which didn't actually explain the business case, and it just inflamed certain areas. But we have access to help every community within Auckland, and we do so. We're a volunteer organisation and a charity organisation, I must add.
Thank you. Now,
okay.
I do have a late question, which I'll accept from Councillor Fletcher, but that is the final question. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, and I'd like to add my congratulations to you, Tony, for the ability that you can bring to bring freshness through. It's certainly my hope that on these types of programs that we can see cross-party support and that they be mainstream, so that we don't end up with polarisation on it. The question that I want to pose to you is, when we're talking about something of the magnitude of 306 million, do you think you should be getting the business case after 8 p.m. at night for a meeting the following day? Is that good process in terms of trying to get the buy-in of everyone to understand what can be achieved from this, and that the financial matters can be properly explored?
I think timely information is absolutely important, but I also think we need to look at the future and the vision for Auckland, and what the overall direction is, and the pathway for that. And when I look at this plan that Auckland Transport has put in front of you, it will still provide the ability to check in and to ensure projects are delivered in a timely and efficient manner. So I still think that you will have plenty of opportunity to steer, but I do urge you to look at where Auckland needs to be by 2030, and whether or not this plan supports that vision. Yes, this would be my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Tony. We'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
Tony.
We wish you well in your tenure chairing Bike Auckland, and thanks for your advocacy today in support of that particular item 9. And please stay with us if you wish. You're most welcome. We've got a couple of items of business before we go there. So can I have a mover of acknowledgement of Tony Mitchell? Councillor Dalton will move it. Councillor Cooper will second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no, and declare that carried. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And now I'm calling upon Christian Eek. He is from the Sites of Significance Working Party for the film industry, to address us on the sites of significance and filming. Welcome, Christian.
Cool. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Mayor, committee members and councillors. It's really nice to see some of you guys in person for once.
If you could just bring your mic towards you a little bit.
Bring on. There you go. My name is Christian Eek. I'm a freelance film producer. I am here representing most of the key film industry organisations in New Zealand. Hopefully you guys all know the benefits of our billion-dollar industry, both financially and culturally through our city. We're very much a growth industry, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. I'm here to talk to you guys about a major issue we have in regards to the resource consent requirement for filming on sites of significance. Now, before I start talking, it's really important that we clarify that we are, as our industry, we fully support mana whenua and the sites of significance. Our only issue is the resource consent requirement. The timeframes and cost of a resource consent doesn't bear any resemblance to the current film permitting process, which through Screen Auckland is usually about a week, sometimes more, maybe a $1,200 fee to film on a council site. A resource consent will take 8 to 10 weeks and cost somewhere close to $20,000. So effectively, it means that most local and also most international productions will not be able to meet those timeframes or the cost. So effectively, we're now, I wouldn't say banned, but we're not able to film in key public places like Victoria Park, Coyle Park, Western Park, Aotea Square, many key sites around the city. Obviously, there are sites of significance that are probably unsuitable for filming, like an Urupa and places like that. But a lot of the places on this list are living, breathing city spaces that have thousands of people commuting and doing business in these places. So, for a temporary activity like filming, it does seem a little bit excessive. One recent example, there's a major international TV show shooting downtown on the corner of Queen Street and Shortland Street. They were going to shoot early in the morning, they had traffic management in place, and all of that was all approved. But because the corner, the intersection between Queen Street and Shortland Street is a site of significance, they realized they needed a resource consent. So they didn't have time or money to do that, so they've had to change their traffic management plan, change the camera positions, which are not the positions that the production want, but it was the only way they could get around it. So these things keep popping up more and more, and it's going to really, it's just a very bad look for our ability to attract international productions to come to Auckland and New Zealand. Like when these overseas studios look at where they want to base their production, there's many factors they look at, and ease of access to sort of council and government property is a key thing. And this kind of red tape will effectively kneecap both our international industry, but also our local industry. Unlike most resource consents, we're not building anything, we're not doing any earthworks or land disturbance. We literally turn up, put up some lights and film. And it's also really important to note that we already have existing processes in place for film permitting, processes that mostly work. And also it's key to note that we have not had a single complaint for filming on any of these sites of significance. So it's like the system wasn't broken, but there's this added application we need to do that doesn't seem to kind of match up with what we're asking for. And on top of doing a resource consent, we still need to do all the usual permitting processes through Screen Auckland or DOC or regional parks or Tupuna Maunga. So it's just adding a lot of workload to everyone. So essentially it doesn't seem to benefit anyone. Like I'm sure the council already has enough resource consent applications. We certainly don't have time or money to do it, and I'm sure that iwi also have probably more pressing issues. So it seems like when this was decided years ago, it wasn't fully thought through the ramifications, both for us and iwi and the council itself. We are very much hoping that we can solve this quickly so that we can all focus on more pressing issues. But if we don't solve it now, more sites of significance will be added. We're going to lose more and more public sites for filming, and our international reputation is going down the gurgler, and we're going to stop having all these major productions that want to come here and film. So, quickly, what are we doing? We're working with Screen Auckland and Auckland Unlimited, and we have just started the process of negotiating directly with local iwi. That's quite early on that process, so I don't have any feedback for you now, but it sounded very positive. But it's also key to know that I think a lot of the local iwi are as surprised as we were when they found out that you need a resource consent to film on the sites of significance. So, yeah, there seemed to be a bit of surprise there. What do we want from you guys? We'd love to hear your thoughts about the best and most elegant solution to this. And we would also love if you guys are able to officially assign a planner to work with us on solving this issue for everyone.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks for outlining the issue, the concern, and the way forward in part. And I'll take questions now from member Tau Henare. Kia ora, Tau.
Kia ora, Chief. Thank you, Chair. Christian, just a couple of questions, mate. How many times have you met with mana whenua over this issue?
We've got a large working group. I'm not part of the group that are talking directly to mana whenua. I think this is quite early on in the process because literally the sites of significance came into effect last March. It wasn't until Christmas last year that our industry actually became aware of it. And then we've been working with Screen Auckland over the last few months and then only recently started the process of engaging directly with mana whenua. So it's very early on in the process for that.
It seems to be... okay, okay, cool. Yeah, no further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Member Henry, and I will now go to Member Karen Wilson.
Kia ora, I shall choose my words very carefully. Kia ora, Christian. I note there's some strength in your words around kneecapping and lots of workload, doesn't benefit anyone. We don't consider this as a pressing issue. That would be a key point that one wouldn't say on behalf of iwi. So I note in the documentation here that Foresight Consulting is scoping some options, and then I note there's immediate need, and that one of the options that's being proposed in terms of immediate need is proposing, as you've said, a secondment, Auckland Council to join Auckland. The thing that I find really puzzling, I'd have to say, is there's no attempt whatsoever to have an understanding of what mana whenua actually consider significant in terms of sites of significance, hence the name. You seem to have, I know you have concentration on the screen industry and the economic benefits, but no understanding whatsoever in terms of why mana whenua support the need, because they're sites of significance, and worse, they're not complete yet. Is there any thinking that you have in the role that you have that is significant to mana whenua and therefore does require some protection over and above the economic benefits that you're proposing?
Christian.
Thank you. I mean, I will acknowledge that this is not my area of expertise. I am a foreigner, so I will not, I'm not an expert on this. I also just want to clarify that we don't have any issues in regards to sites of significance, and we'd like to engage with mana whenua to sort of to distinguish what are appropriate sites to film on and what are not. Our main issue is that we don't think the resource consent process benefits either mana whenua or the screen industry, and that's why part of our working group, which is the biggest part of our working group, are now engaging directly with mana whenua to try and work through that process. The biggest issue here is that we didn't realize that this happened until after it had happened. If there had been consultation with the screen industry years ago when all of this sort of started, we would have been able to have had some of this discussion then. So we're sort of very much catching up on and trying to sort of untangle what happened. And also, we do want to talk to mana whenua and hear their concerns. It's the resource consent requirement that seems a bit too heavy-handed for what we need. But, as you point out, every site has its own significance, and we can't assume that we can film everywhere. That's not what we're saying at all.
Thank you, Christian. I think a really good solution that hasn't been put into the documentation is an understanding by yourself and the screen industry into sites of significance and the measures that have been put forward to protect those. I think that's not well understood. I'm thinking if you continue to say mana whenua say this, that also isn't representative of the true thinking in terms of sites of significance. I'll leave it there, but I think there is a lot of work in understanding what that means and the need for resource consents because they are sites of significance. I think that's a big piece of work that needs to be looked at, to be honest.
Thank you, Member Wilson. Good words, and thank you, Christian, for your presentation here today, highlighting your viewpoint. And that's important. Members, we've considered the address of Christian in advance today and are proposing the motions before you there. And that is firstly to acknowledge the importance of these sites of significance to Māori. They are very important. That's critical, and we highlight that. We acknowledge the concerns raised by the screen industry, and then we note that Auckland Unlimited and Plans and Places Department are aware of those concerns and that we will look into those concerns, but we will look into them with mana whenua. So there's a lot of work to do. So members, if you can have a look at those in red. I think I've got one last question from Councillor
I actually put my hand up quite a while ago, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm happy to move it.
It's moved by Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Just the question is around. It's almost, sorry, I'm a bit confused because there was a lot of commentary in some of that. It is a question. Given the requirement now for a resource consent, do you think that Auckland Screen's website, part of Auckland Unlimited, says we've earned an international reputation as a filming destination that offers top quality, cost-effective and conducive environment for screen production and post-production, given it's 10 times the time and 10 times the cost, is at risk?
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole nother discussion, but I think a lot of the information on the Screen Auckland and Auckland Limited website, including promotional material with images and videos of places where we want people to come and film, a lot of those places are unpermittable. So this is a whole nother issue, which basically lists, I mean, I'd like to come back to you and talk to you guys again one day about how tricky it is to permit filming in Auckland, the amount of red tape, the amount of stakeholders we need to engage with. But this certainly doesn't help. Yeah. But I also think it's really important to point out that this is not mana whenua's fault. This is just it's a statutory requirement that was written into the Unit Territory Plan years ago, and it's only just now sort of been activated, and we're trying to entangle it, but we're very much starting on the back foot here.
Thank you. Look, we've got some work to do here and some understanding to be looked at as well. So let's leave it there. It's moved and seconded by Councillor Cooper and Councillor Henderson. Thank you. The motions are before us for voting. I will call the vote. All those in favour say aye.
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 And to the contrary, say
Aye.
no. And to the contrary, say no. Thank you, members. That motion is carried. Thank you, Christian. And we have some work to do. Thank you. Members, that concludes item 5, local board input.